Hi, everyone. We're very excited to be live today with the Morning Mint. We're doing our Hudson County Q2 market discussion with our Triplemint House Hoboken agents. We've got Angie Lieberg, we've got Paula Bancaya, we've got Natalie Minyard, we've got Tracy Esquire, we've got Idoris Head, and Amy Frank Goldman. And we're thrilled to have you all today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so, it was an incredible Q2. We've just released our market updates and the numbers are insane in terms of how much sales have increased, what's happening with prices, what's happening with days on market. And so we wanted to get some of our local Hudson County experts to share what's going on in the market and to give us some really interesting insights about everything. So why don't we just jump right in here? Hudson County sales were up 25% from Q1 to Q2 and 123% from Q2 2020. Well, first of all, where are these buyers coming from?
They're coming from all over. One of the trends that I'm seeing right now is a lot of people that did rush out to the burbs in Jersey, even as far as Pennsylvania, to have more space, house, yard, that sort of thing. Many people were just not able to, find a home because there were so many bidding wars going on. So a lot of people ended up renting if they were even lucky enough to find that. And they are now having to return to work. And so a lot of the clients that I'm seeing, the people that are coming to my listings are actually people that left New York and came to New Jersey or Pennsylvania and are now on this side of the river. And so they are taking a look at Hudson County to be closer to the city now that they've got to go back, a lot of them after Labor Day, and they're getting prepared to have to come back to the office. And so they're, instead of going all the way back over to Brooklyn or Queens, Long Island City, we're seeing, and Manhattan, they're coming to Hudson County instead. So it's kind of
interesting. Is that what everyone else is seeing as well?
For me, because I tend to work with first-time home buyers, quite a few of my buyers are coming from New York City, because they're looking for a larger place to live. Our square footage tends to be larger than in New York City, and our price point is better. So quite a few of my buyers are native New Yorkers learning about what we have to offer here in Hudson County.
I'm experiencing people coming from different parts of New Jersey itself, more in the suburbs and coming towards the the downtown area of Jersey City, and they want to be closer to New York, and they feel that they can get more for their money in Jersey City, and the rates are so great, and they feel it's an opportune time to buy. So they're coming closer into the metro area to be closer to New York, but not in New York.
That makes sense. Well, to your point about pricing being, getting, Tracy, to your point about pricing, getting more for your money, the median listed price for a home in Hudson County in Q2 was $610,000. So what can buyers expect to get for $610,000 in Hudson County?
Well, for me,
depending on the neighborhood.
That's true.
Absolutely. Depends on proximity to the city, I think. That varies.
I know in Hoboken, that would get you a large 1-bedroom or a small 2-bedroom, not on the waterfront, right? But a 2-bedroom would probably be in a walk-up or in a brownstone that was, maybe part of a duplex, might have a yard, might not. And, that's in that price range is probably what you're getting, or a large 1-bedroom.
Okay.
I would have to agree with Amy. Same for like downtown Jersey City. I see more people going to Jersey City Heights and Journal Square because you will get more for your money there. Probably a larger 2-bedroom, maybe even a 3-bed, and you're still close proximity to the city for an easy commute.
Bayonne, you could actually get a nice single family and maybe a fixer-up 2-family.
Wow.
So a lot more space and opportunity in Bayonne.
That's
similar. Please continue.
I would say similar to Bayonne's numbers, Secaucus also offers like single families in that uppers higher end number of that 590 mark. You can get a single family in Secaucus. It is competitive because that's what's in demand. But for a 3-bedroom, you can get a nice single family. We are.
Right. Especially in Bergen Lafayette, that would be a going price for a 2-family or a single family.
Okay.
It's a lot of value.
That really is.
If you're going to go downtown Jersey waterfront, it's a whole new different ballgame. You're going to get a smaller condo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You go in the areas of West New York and Guttenberg, for that price, 600 price point, you'll be able to get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for that price point.
Interesting. You know, that is quite a bit more value because in Manhattan, for example, your median listed price is right around 1 million. So to hear that you're going to be able to get so much more, potentially a 3-bedroom for 610K, I understand why people are going there. And so, you know, particularly Tracy and Paula, you've mentioned some towns that are not as, you know, often talked about. So tell us, what are the transportation options for Secaucus and for Guttenberg and Weehawken, West New York, for somebody who might be considering moving and is looking for more value?
So as a native Secaucusan, I don't even know if that's the correct term, but what a lot of people find attractive about Secaucus is that it has multiple access points to the major highways like 94, 95, which takes you straight to the Lincoln Tunnel. You can get there in under 15 to 10 minutes, depending on the time of day. Also to 1 and 9 and to the Turnpike. The Secaucus Junction itself is the hub of the New Jersey Transit trains. So it's a 14-minute ride into Penn Station. You have no transfers. Actually, all the trains from Penn Station into New Jersey must transfer out of Secaucus. So if you're a resident here, you just have to take one train in. Also, we have buses that run 24 hours, which is really convenient. And there are bus stops that are covered all over town. So that's also why in the morning you will see almost all the buses between 6 a.m. to 9 are fully packed. So, and just driving proximity to the city is just major. You have, most of the homes here have driveways or, you know, ample street parking. So it's just really all around great for anyone who's commuting or anyone that wants that balance between like a suburban urban feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have Weehawken, West New York, and Guttenberg, even all the way up to North Bergen. There, you can either take the bus into Port Authority, or we have what's called the Jitney, which runs 24 hours a day. And then we're also close to the Weehawken Ferry. What people don't realize is the reason why West New York is called West New York, because it is literally west of New York City, and we have the same grid. So perfect example, the Galaxy. The address is 7000 through 7004 Boulevard East. That is literally 70th Street and Boulevard East. So if we were able to walk across the Hudson, we would be on 70th Street and the West Side Highway.
Oh,
so that's just how close you are to the Lincoln Tunnel.
Oh, that's so interesting.
It's literally 30 blocks.
Wow. Oh, okay. Fascinating. I had no idea that it was a similar grid to New York City and West New York, and incredible views, obviously.
Beautiful views.
Okay. So, you know, obviously the prices have gone up in Hudson County. So average sales price in Hudson County were up 12% year over year and 9% quarter over quarter. How are buyers responding to this?
I think that buyers should be expecting to see some prices go up. I mean, obviously, Q2 of last year was the, one of the toughest years for all of us in real estate. The uncertainty of what was going on in April of last year was really the bottom. So it would be expected to see prices start going up, but I think that we still have room to go up, and with the rates as low as they are, and they're that we're seeing more inventory maybe come into the market, so we're seeing more opportunities. I think that they should be excited, and I think that they are taking their time. They're looking at everything. They're seeing what's out there, but it's still an amazing time to purchase a home in Hudson County.
Okay. And I mean, something that's been in the news a lot lately is the rising inflation. So how would you say inflation is impacting the current real estate market?
I'll tap that one if you don't mind.
Of course.
Inflation obviously is a great place to invest when you're looking long term. Real estate rather is a great asset class to invest in when you're looking long term for opportunities. And I think there might have been a slide or two that I had shared with you. I don't know if you have the ability to take those up or not.
Oh,
but
I don't. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Historically, when you look at the performance of the real estate markets versus the stock market during inflationary times, the real estate market is a lot more consistent. So investing in personal real estate, there's a couple of reasons why there's actually a lot of value in doing that at this current time. Obviously, rates are low. Interest rates will go up because the Federal Reserve will use interest rates as a tool to combat inflation as inflation continues to rise. Mm-hmm. And as everyone knows, that we're having a lot of supply chain issues. So that is being able to get the goods and services out to the people who actually need them and want to buy them. And one of the, I would say one of the commodities that's becoming incredibly expensive, even though it's come down in recent days, but it's still very expensive, is lumber. So when you don't have the lumber, or the cost of lumber is too expensive to build a new home, existing homes go up in value. And as a result, the existing homes, as inflation goes up and the cost, and also I should mention, it's not just the cost of the lumber, but the labor and all the other parts that are included in building. Mm-hmm. And then onto that end, obviously renovations, right? Mm-hmm. So a renovated home, or a home that's existing, but especially renovated, will be worth even more money because the cost of doing those renovations yourself have become prohibitive because of inflation. Mm-hmm. So I think the clients that I'm meeting, they're starting to do the cost benefit analysis of doing those fixer-uppers, and they're finding that because the cost of doing those fixer-uppers have gone up because of inflation, they're almost better buying something that's already done. Mm-hmm. So buyers are definitely looking at projects that are finished. New construction that's near the tail end of delivery is very desirable because the next iteration will likely be much more expensive. And so it is actually, again, coupled with low interest rates, it's an amazing time to purchase residential real estate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to that point, in what areas of Hudson County can buyers find the most value? Paula, what would you say?
Well, I think that would really determine what the motivation of the buyer is. Now, if a buyer is focused on the school system, if they have children, or their commute to work, or the square footage, I think is what primarily motivates people to decide where they want to live, especially during the pandemic and having to be in lockdown and experience what that's like. And most buyers, especially couples that have been living together and working remotely from home, from my experience, that's definitely one of their must-haves is the amount of square footage, or some sort of 2-bedroom with not sharing a wall. That's one of their main goals. So I mean, at least in Sea Caucus, I know for sure you can get in that 610 price range. You can find a beautiful 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, or a single family home, even a multifamily that needs some work. And that's really where I think they find their value. And again, if they're commuting in, they're factoring that into whether or not that's a place they want to live. So for me, I mean, it really goes on if they're working from home or not, or if they have to go back into the office. That's where I think decide what's valuable to them.
I think the value proposition actually fluctuates between the person's personal goals and what they're trying to achieve with their life. A good example of that is like Bergen Lafayette. It's an up-and-coming neighborhood. It's the last enclave waterfront property in Jersey City, and it's very close to Manhattan. So you're right across from, blocks away from the light rail, easy access into New York City. And so that's a value proposition for someone who wants to stay close to New York, and an expat coming from New York who wants to go back to New York, as often as possible. And then the space is amazing. You can get a 1,500 square foot, 2-bedroom, 21 ceiling high apartment in the Foundry right across from the light rail. And the park is right there too. So that's another value proposition. And the space is important. You can get a lot more money for your space in that particular building. So I think each neighborhood has its own value proposition for the individual.
And I'm going to throw out Bayonne. I'm a big fan. It's been really great to watch it change, develop a bit. Median sales price last quarter was up to 465 up. So that is actually really low. It's a lower number than what we've been talking about. Their taxes are a little bit high. They're working on that, but you can get, you see a lot of single and two families that they're ready for some love. So there is an opportunity if you are someone that is a little bit handy or excited about doing a renovation and can deal with what's going on, to Amy's point. We're going to see I think we're going to see a lot of growth going on in Bayonne. I also like to pay attention to, outside of just the real estate, what's going on in the area. I think that's where us real estate agents can really provide a lot of value to people that are coming over and don't know the area well, or even think they do. We dig into and read every day about, what new train stations are coming, what new schools are being built, where's the Whole Foods coming. We have a Whole Foods coming in downtown Jersey City. That changes the value. So Bayonne, what's great is the whole east side, we have all the big, huge stores. We've got the Costco now, we've got the Home Goods and Walmarts and Lowe's, and all that is along basically the eastern side. It's also where there is going to be a ferry, and that's a big deal. So Amazon came in, they've got a big space down on the south side of Bayonne. They're talking about adding more ferries. So paying attention to other factors in a neighborhood is really important to kind of know where, okay, in 5 years, where do we think this is going to be? So I do think Bayonne has so much beautiful waterfront, beautiful parks. They have the old school kind of Main Street feel along Broadway, but with all the new stuff as well. Big, huge, beautiful houses. And like I said, really great parks and super close to the city as well. Light rail, buses, and soon to have the ferry.
That's amazing.
I would almost add on that too, if I could.
Yeah.
One of the biggest drivers for real estate growth during inflationary periods is rents. So you'll see rents go up typically, again, to keep pace with the cost of inflation. And so if you were an investor and you were considering buying a multifamily, I think it's a really opportune time, because if you could start with a rent level that covers the cost of your monthly expenses, and then inflation goes up and now your rent goes up, but your cost remains the same with that low interest rate, that could be really advantageous for somebody who's looking to do a long-term multifamily purchase.
Mm-hmm. And so to that point, how is the rental market right now? How are you all seeing the rental market? Angie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I've definitely seen the rental market pick up, and landlords aren't having to offer as many incentives anymore. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe, back to Natalie's point in the beginning, a lot of people are coming back to this area that have to go back to work in September, and they need a place to live. A rental building right close to where I live just opened up a few weeks ago, and in the first 2 weeks of opening, they had over 40 leases signed.
Wow.
So people are really flooding back to the area, and they're going for those new construction buildings because those landlords are still offering those big incentives, 1 or 2 months free, low security deposit, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to that point, Angie, I think that the new development, which there's so much of it right now, mm-hmm. is definitely a more desirable thing at the moment, certainly having just gone through COVID. So to know that you can move in and be the first person that's ever lived in that home is very enticing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll actually add something there too as well. There's a lot of people that I've been working with in Hoboken that are looking to upgrade their space, right? So one of the things we've really seen is like a huge demand for larger spaces. In fact, I kind of nerded out for a minute and I took some numbers here. But if you look at 2019, single family homes in Hoboken, from January through the end of July, for that period in 2019, there was 18 sales in Hoboken, okay? From January till year to date this year, 39.
Wow.
So single family homes are moving like hotcakes, right? So not so much related to rental, but what is interesting is the homes that have not been able to sell have been renting. And so there was a very large 3-bedroom in a building across from here, a luxury building. They were asking probably a little bit more than they should have, and they decided to rent. And they put it up for a number that in a million years I never thought they would have gotten, $8,500 a month. They got it. It was rented within 3 days. Wow. So I think what's happening is there's people that are testing this neighborhood, right? If you lived on the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side for 10, 12, 15 years, Hoboken's an unknown, and it's a pretty big risk to drop down 2.5 or 3 million, whatever the cost is for a 2,200 square foot apartment or brownstone, right? So people are like, let me test out the neighborhood, see if I like it. Let me make sure before I invest this kind of money into a piece of real estate that this works for me. And so the rents are crazy for anything that's over like a 2+. It's just, they're getting scooped up really fast, especially on the waterfront.
And so that makes me ask, like, what properties are in highest demand right now in each of the markets you all work in?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. One of the markets I work in is keep going back to Bergen Lafayette, because I live in the neighborhood as well. Over the past 2 years, 2 years ago, 8 buildings were developed, all rentals at one time. 8 rental properties all at one time. And they all were kind of similar in the way that they were boutique-ish, except for one had 350 apartments in it. There's a building zone in the area where you can't go over 8 stories. So it keeps it kind of unique to match with the fabric of the neighborhood. So it's not kind of like your canyon sticking up in the sky and things of that nature. But there's a lot of rental properties. You look at what's going on downtown Jersey City, you know, all those rental properties going on. In terms of condo buildings, there's the smaller boutique buildings that seem to be very popular in downtown Jersey City that's going up. You're not seeing the large condo building coming up anywhere in downtown Jersey City. Just these large rental properties. So yeah, it's a very interesting market for renters. They have a lot to choose from.
Okay.
I think it also goes back to space, and with everything going on in the news again, people don't know what's going to happen, so they want that bigger space. For example, I just sold to clients 2 years ago a 2-bedroom, about 1,500 square feet in downtown Jersey City, and now they're considering upgrading to a 3-bed over 2,000 square feet, just because they've been working from home together. They need more space, and you know, they want that outdoor space, and they're willing to pay that premium to get all that and, you know, still live comfortably. So I definitely see more of a demand for the bigger spaces still, 2 and 3 bedrooms.
So what I think is really interesting is the new buildings, all the new buildings that are getting built are obviously, the units are much smaller than they were 10 years ago. To get a 750 to 800 square foot 1-bedroom was pretty common. Now you're lucky to get 700 square feet. So what I think is going to be really exciting is to see some of the, and I'm not even saying old buildings, but older built 10-year-old, 15-year-old buildings that do have that nice footprint, that it's kind of about time to do a renovation anyway. Someone's spending money, maybe getting a little bit better value for the home itself than spending the money to bring it up to what they want for themselves, the new, more modern finishes, and having the best of both. So I'm excited to see some of those buildings, even the older pre-war buildings where they're just huge 1-bedrooms, like 1,000 square foot 1-bedrooms, to Angie's point, I think we're going to see a demand for that continuing. In Bayonne, got to go back to Bayonne again, we saw the majority of the sales last quarter, and I think this is pretty consistent, were 1 and 2 families. So that, again, that's kind of what a lot of people were looking for. We know that 1-bedrooms dipped kind of throughout, and everybody was looking for the 2, 3 bedroom, even condos. So interesting to kind of watch that and how that goes next year.
And I've had some clients that have looked at properties that kind of fit that mold, Natalie, where the property has a really big footprint. You know, we've talked about the Toll Brothers iterations, right? Their first 2 bedrooms were 1,500 square feet, some 16. Now they're 1,000 to 1,100 square feet. So they've looked at those older units, and we've had the discussion, instead of ripping out the kitchen and putting in a completely new kitchen, let's reface the cabinets, let's put a new countertop and a new sink, and it feels like new, right? So instead of taking out a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 project, we have the ability to do something that gives it a really nice refresh that, again, isn't as strained with supply chain, still makes a marketable difference in the appearance, and also obviously resale. So.
But we're also finding, I read an article that they've broken ground in West New York. West New York usually, unless you were close to Boulevard East, close to the water, we didn't really have mid-rises or high-rises as rental properties. Nothing new had been built. But there are 2 different for-rent luxury buildings that are being built in the middle section of West New York. And that's very different for us. So we do see that the dynamics of the community are changing because we are getting so many people from the city or from Southern New Jersey who still want that urban feel but may not necessarily be able to afford Manhattan. They will now have new luxury rentals here in the community.
Okay. And, you know, so I think something that a lot of people are asking right now is the market slowing down? What are you all seeing?
Look, the summer is always typically going to be a little bit slower. People are away. I think this year it's exaggerated a bit because of everybody was so cooped up. People want to be away. They want to take their vacations, go to the shore, and they're going to worry about it when the fall. And we always know the fall market is busy. So I'm excited to see that we're still. I mean, I'm still very, very busy. I think most of us are. I think maybe the urgency isn't quite there yet. I think people are going to maybe be looking to take things a little more seriously from the fall. Yeah. Although, you know, like we've been talking about, people have to get back to work. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward in August. You know, like we've been talking, the rental market probably is going to tick up as well for September 1st, I would imagine. But this month will be pretty strong and busy for rentals. And I think that the fall market is going to be really, really strong. I think we have sellers that were holding off that didn't want to, you know, in Hudson County, we didn't see quite the boom that we saw out in the burbs. So I think the people that were kind of waiting to see, now that we've seen the numbers kind of tick back up, may be ready to make a move, and more inventory will be coming on the market for those buyers that have been kind of out there thinking about.
I'll take that as an opportunity, actually, to touch on some of the numbers in Hoboken, because I think the numbers tell the story. You know, year over year, Hoboken's up 128%, which in itself is obviously, anytime you have a 3-digit year over year improvement is amazing. The reality is most of us were under lock and key last year. So although it's a very meaningful number, I think the more meaningful number is actually quarter over quarter, which is actually we're up at 54%. And so I think when you look at those numbers, and that's a very, very big increase from one quarter to the next. Huge. And I think there's an appetite for people that want to buy. There's an appetite for people who want to sell. And again, I actually agree with Natalie. I think things will pick up in September. I think there will be people who, you know, I hope we don't have any more lockdowns, but we'll see what happens. But I think there will be people who move to the burbs and now they've started to commute back into the city and they're really just not happy with that commute. So it'll be really interesting to see how things take shape. But even in a traditional real estate market, August is usually, you know, one of the slower months. Not that there isn't opportunities to make, to make investments into real estate, but September usually things pick up again. So I'm excited to see where that takes us here in Hoboken.
I think Hudson County is prime for the pied-à-terre. You know, I think that there are people that did go and buy the big house out there and are, you know, they rushed out there. They're excited, they love it, but now they got to back to work. And to have a small space closer to the city, I think is going to be a very enticing thing for a lot of people. So I'm interested to see how that plays out too.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to share a very quick story. Sure. I had a client who lived in Princeton for the last 25 years. Both kids went off to college. The husband's the CEO of a company in the city, and he's now going back to work. And now the wife is an empty nester, and with the commute, he's getting home at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So she's like, I want to go to the city. So she's driving the sale of their home in the burbs. And because their home is going to sell very quickly, they're taking their time trying to find the right property here. They have not sold the home in the burbs yet because they know it'll sell the minute they list it. Right. Yeah. So we've been doing a lot of research for them here. But it's very interesting. The pied-à-terre, I think that really works for some of the younger couples. This is a couple where the husband, I want to say he's the early 60s. The wife is, you know, probably 60 or younger. And they just really want to move here because she wants to not be alone all day. Yeah. She wants to be here when he's done instead of an hour and a half later. Yeah. So it's a really interesting environment we're in.
Well, and to Paula's point earlier, where's the value? Depends on what you're, you know, what you consider valuable. Yeah. Is it having all that space, or is it having more time with your loved ones? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we've seen families making that decision in Hudson County for years. Yeah. Why there was a demand for quite a stretch for the larger spaces here in Hudson County. I know in Jersey City. I mean, Hoboken, we saw it too. You guys have been building 4 bedrooms. We have a handful of them in Jersey City. I think that we're going to see more and more. But that's been a debate for a long time. I know when I first got into real estate long time ago, it was, almost at the point that people got to a point in their relationship that they knew they were going to be having kids. They left, they went, and something changed. And they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to have to do that long commute. They wanted more time with their families, and so they started saying a demand for the larger spaces here.
Yeah, Taurasi has a project going up on Hudson in between like 6th and 7th. They took 4 brownstones and they're turning them into duplexes.
Wow.
And they're going for minimum 2.6 million, 4-bedroom. But if anyone's familiar with Taurasi, they do top of the line everything. It's all Miele, it's all Wolf, Sub-Zero, Viking, very, very, very high-end finishes, heated floors and all that stuff, the gradient floors. So that'll be an interesting project to see how quickly that sells out, because again, it's minimum 4-bedroom and they're all duplexes. Either have a roof terrace or they have an outside backyard. So the demand is there, I guess. We'll see.
Okay, well, last question for all of you is final advice for someone who is about to start their buying journey.
I'm going to jump in as the broker here and say, find yourself a really strong buyer's agent that is going to fight for what you want, that's going to help you figure out what you want. As we've talked about, Hudson County has so many wonderful options, and to really dig in and have these conversations with you, and we know what questions to ask to help you make the best decision for yourself, to go over and discuss your goals. And we always are able to offer up our team. We've all worked with amazing professionals, and we want to pass those along to you, whether it's mortgage lenders, attorneys, inspectors, contractors. We usually have a really great list of vendors that we can provide as well. So I think the very first thing is to find yourself a great buyer's agent, and that you're comfortable with, that you trust, and that has some experience in the area that you're looking to purchase.
Absolutely. And obviously everyone who is in this market discussion is a great candidate for working with, very, very experienced and with your best interests in mind. So thank you for that, Natalie, who is our broker of record in New Jersey. What else would you all say? I mean, I think you have to really prepare yourself for the market if you're about to enter it. So what advice would you give, Tracy, coming to you? What advice would you give to somebody who's about to start?
I would give someone the advice of be proactive with your agent. Look at this as a collaboration, and be very communicative and be accountable, because it's a two-sided relationship.
Sure.
And don't be passive about what you, or ashamed to ask something that you don't know. And I just say, approach it as a collaboration, because you, the buyer, have work to do along with the buying agent. And just look at it as a collaboration and be prepared to work.
Okay, that sounds good. Tracy, what would you share?
And what I would share with my buyers is, allow me to offer you the services that we provide. For example, recommending a local lender, because that's very important. Sometimes we'll get buyers who have pre-approvals from big box banks, for example, a Wells Fargo or something like that. If the bank is not familiar with the community, for example, Hoboken, Jersey City, or West New York, if they're a New York bank, it can cause issues for you getting to the closing table. So it's very important to work with a lender that we have a relationship with, that has a successful record of closing in Hudson County. The other thing that I would recommend, be patient with yourself. Don't get frustrated, because you're not buying a pair of shoes. You are buying real estate, which is a serious commitment. So it's going to take time sometimes to find exactly that home that you feel rosy and wonderful about. It's going to happen. Just don't be so hard on yourself.
Okay, thank you. Angie, anything you'd like to add to this?
I think those are great tips, and just talking with your agent, depending on the property you're going into the market looking for, ask what's going on in that market, whether it's multifamily, single family, and how you should prepare. If you're going to end up going into a bidding war, what do they need to expect to beef up their offer and make it more competitive? So just get them prepared for all of that ahead of time, instead of at the final, best and final, and you're explaining everything to them then, and then they're kind of in shock.
Okay. That's very good advice, because for many people, getting into a bidding war is not what you're expecting when you when you enter the market, and certainly not what you want. When you find a house you love, you want to win it. Okay, Amy, what would you share? What advice would you give?
I would say build out your team. It's like anything else in life. And I use the example a lot of times when people come to me as their financial planner. I'm like, you spend 2 weeks or 3 weeks researching your vacation, and then you go on a Facebook page to pick your financial planner. I think a realtor is the same. You have to find your team and you have to find your people, right? So this is the most expensive purchase that you'll make in your life. You have to make sure that you're working with someone that not only that you feel is competent, but that you click with, and they kind of get you as a person. The second piece to that is purchasing a home. Again, very big investment. Understand how that works from a tax standpoint. Whether it's a single family, a condo, a multifamily, an investment property, talk to your accountant, have a conversation with them, and make sure you speak to a lender, not only that has local knowledge, but somebody who's really fair. One of the biggest pet peeves that I have as a financial planner is I have people that will come to me and they'll say, okay, my lender said I can afford X, Y, Z a month. And I said, hold on a second. I don't want you eating stewed tomatoes out of a can. Can you afford that? Yes. But if you don't get the bonus that you got last year or the bonus you got the year before, and again, we're in COVID environment, right? You're going to be in a situation where things are going to be pretty tight. Let's make sure you go on that vacation that you took 4 weeks to plan, right? So I think having a lender you trust, talking to an accountant, making sure that your financial situation is in line. If you have a financial planner, making sure that the money that you're going to be using as a down payment is liquid, not invested in the market, because the markets are volatile. And then also making sure that you click with the agent that you have a relationship with. I think those are all really important things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you, Amy. Paula, any last words for someone about to get into the market to buy?
Yes, everything everyone has said were great, points of advice. I think back to what Angie was saying, I think managing expectations is number one. In this market, trying to explain to them that you're up against the odds, the sellers, let's just say, and kind of giving them an idea of where their buying power and how much it will get them, and then explaining to them, obviously later on down the line, but within those first couple showings, you can kind of explain if they express interest in a property, while you do your due diligence as like a buyer's agent and speak with that seller's agent, trying to get as much information. But if you can explain to them, hey, we're up against a few other strong offers, kind of explaining what we can do to position them in a more better light in any way, whether it's explaining what waiving an appraisal is or putting a cap on it, or kind of going deeper into the terms on home inspection, what we're willing to forgo, or just other ways, and them not trying to scare them off, but also being realistic with what their buying power is, so that you don't really promise them something where you're like, listen, I mean, if we can't afford to put more down, we might not get this home, and I don't want to put your hopes up, because a lot of the times they kind of, they're very emotional. Again, biggest purchase of their life for the most part, and they just see that it's like, well, this is all my money, this is how much I'm willing to put up, and they're very passionate about the home, but I think as realtors, we have to give them a realistic kind of view on where they are in this market, so that they don't get disappointed. And again, there's a lot of buyer fatigue over the past, year and a half from this, seller's market. A lot of them, even if they want to take a step back and go into, let me just settle down and rent something, save a little more money and kind of get your spirits back up and find that confidence later on, maybe the next year or so before the interest rates really creep up. I think that that's also something we need to be patient about and express that to our clients, that we're not giving up on them just because they've gone through a tough year of disappointment with not winning, any homes. But I think patience on our end gets communicated either really well, and they know that we're not giving up on them, but that we are just being realistic,
Yes. Okay, so obviously for those of you who are either getting into the buying market, or whether you're renting or selling, you have an excellent team here of people to whom you can reach out for it, whether it's just to ask a question or to start your search or to start your sale. Patience is a huge virtue in this market, unless you're a seller, which you might not need too much patience. It might happen quickly. So I want to thank you all for joining us today and for sharing your expertise with us. It's a pleasure to have you and to work with you. So thank you again. And again, to our viewers, please reach out if you have any questions about the market or if you're looking to buy, sell, or rent. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.